Okay, so need to know how to lay out a log. So I've got me a log on the mill about 12 foot long, 10 inches around. So you know how trees grow, they grow tapered. I have this measuring tape on here. I don't like to read it because it's never on and I seem to always mess it up, but here's what I do use it for. I'll come down to the end and I'll lower the head. Sorry, I just heard something going off in the woods. I think it's eagles, but it kind of sounded like you'd expect elk to sound like, but there's no elk here. So I lower the head down and put the blade just touching the log, and I see that it's 11 7/8. So I'll come down here and I'll put it down, touching the log on the small end. And when I come down here, it was at 10 and a half. It shows there. So that makes 1 3/8 difference. Now what you do is that you split the difference by lifting up the log, and I've already done so. Half of 1 3/8 would be 1/2 inch plus 1 1/2 inch, right? Whatever that comes out to be. If you don't lift up the log this way and even it out, if you just cut it on there, you're going to take so much off that first cut that, you know, it's going to look good on this side, but whenever you flip it over, because it wasn't leveled out, you're going to take a little bit where it looks all nice and flat on this, but whenever you flip it over, you're going to have a little bit that you're marked taken off here, but by the time you get down there, you might have 4 to 6 inches cut off. So you have to level your logs out. And so instead of setting it halfway, I've got me a 1/2 inch board that I use at times, and I got 1 inch and 2 inch laying around that I use. But so I split it in half as much as possible, and I like to do it where it's not exactly half. It's just below half. That way, if there is a mess up, if there's something that I didn't measure right, I'm not cutting too much off the top on that first end and finding out next I've wasted the log because I'm cutting too much off the other end. So that's that. And let me set this up and I'll show you how I mark out a log. This is how you mark out your logs. You find the center of that log, which it's showing 11 inches, and half of 11 inches would be 5 1/2. Take out my... Sorry, it's not necessarily so cold here. It is almost September in Alaska, and I have pretty chilly mornings. The bugs are out, so you always stay dressed up. I don't like wearing DEET. I don't know if you see my glasses, but I have these nice glasses to work in these low lights. But I'm gonna take this coat off for a minute. But for a few days of wearing DEET on my face to keep the bugs off, it completely melted one of my arms off my glasses. So half of 10 1/2 would be 5 1/4. Okay, now we found the center. Let's level this out. Okay, so now we found the center of the log. Now let's see which side's fatter. So there's 10 1/2 there, and there's 11 there. So since this has got more meat on it, which I have to take into account, that measurement is due to that being a crack, so I'm pretty much like 10 3/4. I'm gonna want to cut my 2x this way because there's more meat going this way, so I'll get what I want out of it. So what can I get here? If I can measure up 3 inches, that's a 2x6. 4 is a 2x8. 5 is a 10. So I want to do 6s, so I'm gonna go 3 over or on up and 3 over down. And since I don't like to waste, I don't cut that off. If I can get another 2x out of it, I will. And it looks like my first cut, if I can, depending on what this first cut looks like, will depend whether or not I try to make this a 2x. But if that first cut isn't much, I got a bunch of bark and live edge for it, I'll just make it a 1x. Also, make sure that you give a count for the width of your saw blade. It's roughly 1/8 of an inch. This is how I like to mark and measure. I don't like to use the measuring tape on the saw head. This way I know for sure. Okay, so how many 2x's can I get out of this? If you could see this, I can get 1 2x, 2 2x's. And if you do it right, you know how there's an extra inch there? If that top cut looks good up to here, then you can add another inch on this side right here. That makes altogether an extra 2x. So I go 1 2x, 2 2x's on either side, plus the inch that's going to be left over will wind up making another 2x4 or a 2x6. But you also, again, add in the width of your saw blade, which is 1/8 of an inch. So I'm expecting to make 3 cuts here, and so I need to add 3/8 to that. So 10, and there's 1 2x, 2x, 1 2 3. There's the 3/8 added to that. That's my very top cut. If that looks ugly, then I'll forget that extra 2x and make sure I get some good ones. And it makes it at the very top. Okay, now if you got any trouble or seeing how to lay this out, so there for my first couple years, I made sure I marked everything out, lined it out, so I knew exactly what I was getting. If I'm gonna cut on that line there, that means my 2x is gonna be right here. Add my 1/8 of an inch, my 2x right here. Same way with this side here. Well, since that is my cut, my 2-inch mark goes right here. And here's another 2x. So my first year, what I would do, I'd mark it all out. So I could see exactly what I was getting, and so that I could know that I wasn't messing it up. And I didn't care what the saw head said. I do my own thing. So you can see where the 2x is going to start. There's going to be a little bit of live edge on that one. Okay, there's one there. So you can see by the markings that I've got 1 2x, 2, 3, and 4. 4 2x6s, and that's true 2x. So if you want to cut them down to what town lumber is, you can minus yourself off 1/4 of an inch. And then if you did that 4 times, then what do you got? You got a whole another 1x. But it ain't like Lowe's will do that for you. You buy 4 2-bys, they give you a 1-by for free. So now I'll make my first cut right there, and that will skim off and make it flat and level. I'll roll that over and do the other side. That way, if my measurements are wrong and it takes off too much on one side and it's messed up, I'm not taking too much on I'm not going about to take off another inch and waste the whole log. So you're going to take off there, make sure your first cut's good, and you're just skimming off what it should be. And it should be thin up here and a little thicker down there. It shouldn't be thin up here and real thick down there, and it shouldn't be thick up here and thin down there. It should be thin and get a little thick. And that should be, if that's that first cut, roll it over. If the second cut is the same way, just go ahead and start zipping it up. And in the same way, whenever you flip it over to get your side turns, or whenever I got to cut this side off, see, this will all be flat. And now I got to do these. I'll roll it over, again, do the same thing. Find out how fat it is down there, find out how big it is down here, and level it up and do the same thing. There you go. Have a good day. God bless you.